Our guest today is the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois. He was re-elected. You know, I just realized, Michael Cook, the editor-in-chief of the Chicago Sun-Times. Stand up, Michael. Stand up. Everybody reads the papers, but we couldn't be here today without reading that exclusive from our guest speaker. Our guest today is the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois. He was re-elected in November 2006. Our guest today served as state treasurer from 1991 to 1995, where he cut his office's budget and earned taxpayers $848 million in investment income. In 2001, he walked across Illinois from the Mississippi River to Lake Michigan to raise awareness of the need to provide decent health care for everyone. Our guest today is a graduate of Northwestern University School of Law and holds an international economics degree from Georgetown University. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois, Pat Quinn. Pat?
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming today, certainly for the City Club to sponsor this excellent seminar on the office of Lieutenant Governor from the year 1818 when it began to the present. At first, when I was invited, I didn't expect to have many people in attendance, but it's we're all happy to know that the Lieutenant Governor's office has such wide interest, and it'll be about 10 minutes on the history and mentioning each of our lieutenant governors, and then we'll get into what each of them did. So that's enough of that. I do want to acknowledge Judy Bar Topinka, who served as state treasurer prior to my time there, and Alexei Giannoulias, who is doing an outstanding job as state treasurer. I think very highly of him. And a year ago, a lot of people would have never said it would be possible, but I think the people of Cook County elected a great state's attorney in Anita Alvarez, and I think and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Larry Suffredin, who ran in that race and who's doing an outstanding job as county commissioner. And just before coming on, I had a brief chat with Rufus Williams of our Chicago Public School System, and there's a great program people in this room can participate in. I have done that on several occasions. It's called Real Men Read, an opportunity to go to a public school in Chicago and read to children a book of your choice, and it's really been a great experience, I think, to learn about education and children, and especially emphasize that readers are leaders. We have to believe in that in our society, and I think that that is a very important mission of all of us who are adults, that we should give some of our present to our children's future. And that really is what our country has always been about, our state has been about, that we're custodians of the future. We believe in an optimistic future where we can make things better for the common good. And I think it's important as we begin 2009, after a tumultuous month that frankly the ordeal is still going on, that we do have an optimistic point of view here in Illinois, that we are the land of Lincoln, Lincoln who believed in government of the people and by the people and for the people. It shall not perish from this earth. That's what he said in November of 1863 at Gettysburg. And in 272 words, Abraham Lincoln of Illinois, I think, summed up the essence of American democracy, that we always have to believe in the people, everyday folks banding together, not for profit, for causes they believe in. And there's no more important cause than making sure that our government, our democracy, works well for the public interest and the common good. And clearly we have work to do in Illinois and indeed across our country on very important issues in this year and in years to come. And I think it's important that we here in Illinois, the home state of our president-elect, the home state of Abraham Lincoln, we show not only our country but our whole world what reform is all about. And we have work to do in that area, as everyone knows. And I think really, as we confront the challenges of 2009, there are really three major areas that we have to pay attention to. Clearly, in our country and our state, we have an economic crisis. It's affected many of our neighbors, our coworkers, people that we know on the street. They may have lost their job, or their hours are reduced. Their homes may be in danger of foreclosure. We in Illinois, in my opinion, don't believe our state is just a vast array of 13 million people, the fifth largest state in the country, just a crowd of people, everybody going in their own separate direction. I don't think we believe in that. I don't think the people of Illinois believe in that. We believe that we're a community, a family of shared values. And when your neighbor has a tough break, we're there to help them out. And I think that is very important as our government goes forward at the federal and at the state level in 2009, that we work night and day on this fundamental issue of restoring our economy, our economic recovery, and helping people get the kind of jobs that they need to support their family on. And as state treasurer, as both Treasurer Topinka knows and Treasurer Giannoulias knows, there's a lot state government can do to invest in housing and in small business and women-owned business, in businesses of all kinds, large and small. We want to make small business mean big business in Illinois. We have to help those small businesses, many of which may be in danger today, to help them get through this tough time. We need to make sure that our credit, access to credit, is available. The word credit in Latin means to believe. I took Latin in high school, 4 years of Latin. I never thought I'd use the language, but here it is at a time when I think all of us need to believe in each other. And if we look back in history, when FDR became president, the most important thing he did was restore the faith of American citizens in each other. And I think we need to do that today here in Illinois and across our country. And I think that is a key for economic recovery. I think jobs follow brain power. We need to invest in education at the elementary, secondary level. I taught community college at two different places in Illinois, so I really truly believe in community colleges, and oftentimes during an economic recession, people who are getting a bad break economically go back to school, oftentimes community colleges, to get further skills. So we need to make sure our higher education, our four-year universities, both public and private, are really focused on this mission of making sure we have a strong middle class in Illinois. I think that is the key for economic prosperity, and we have to do everything possible this year to focus on that issue of the economic crisis. And the economic crisis really has overlap with the fiscal crisis of state government. There's no question that our state is in very dire straits when it comes to paying its bills. We've had very long delays in paying vendors, especially for those who provide health care and daycare and important things that matter. And we have to address that. We have to really scrutinize how bad the situation is. I know the treasurer and the comptroller are looking at those numbers. We need to make sure that we get the governor's office involved, and Office of Management and Budget, to really identify for the people what the real facts are. We can't paper this over. We can't pretend that we're better off than we are. We need to know exactly where the state of Illinois stands when it comes to paying its bills. Clearly, the current recession has harmed the sales tax revenues of our state and the income tax revenues. Those are the two mainstays of state government finance, and we have to really look and determine how bad the situation is, but we will prevail. We will go forward. We will have a plan, a very important plan, I think, to make sure that the Illinois state government is honest with its vendors and honest with its taxpayers. I have served not only as state treasurer, but before that I was a commissioner of the Board of Property Tax Appeals, now called the Board of Review in Cook County, and I heard over 4 years literally thousands and thousands of taxpayers who were very upset about the tax system and its unfairness, and they weren't too happy about waste in government where they saw it. And I know firsthand from that first office that I held long ago that it's very important that we always put taxpayers first, and we need to cut unnecessary costs in government. wherever they may occur. But we need to focus on the important things that people are depending on for us in government: public safety, making sure education is second to none, having health care for those who have none at all, and making sure we focus on investing in our economy. I believe a lot in the importance of a sustainable economy. We need to, I think in America, realize that the future of our prosperity in the 21st century are green-collar jobs, jobs really in our own backyard, jobs that involve energy efficiency and in renewable energy and water conservation. You know, a long time ago, a great American writer, Mark Twain, was asked about water, and he said, "Whiskey's for drinking, and water's worth fighting for." And I think we need to remember that in Illinois, with our Great Lake Michigan and the Mississippi River that's 583 miles of our border, and the river system that connects them, the Illinois River system and all of its tributaries. Water we're happy to be blessed with in Illinois. We've got to make sure that we are good stewards of our waterways. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to put good people to work in making sure we do take good care of our water and be stewards of the waterways. So I think that's part of economic recovery in 2009 and beyond. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the issues of water in particular, I think that those in our country who are looking for ways to stimulate the economy, I happen to be the chairman of the Great Lakes Commission, which is 8 states and 2 Canadian provinces. It's a binational group, it's a regional group, and I think all of us here in Chicago, we know how important Lake Michigan is to not only our economy, but to our whole way of life, to our culture. And I think that our children would be very disappointed in us and our grandchildren if we, when history is written, we're not good people when it comes to conservation and the environment. There's a provision in the Illinois Constitution that says that it's the duty of every person to provide and maintain a healthful environment for this and future generations. It's not just the duty of government, it's our entire duty of every single person to provide and maintain a healthful environment for our time and for the future. And there are great economic opportunities in that. But having talked about the fiscal problems of Illinois, the economic challenges that we have, there's no higher challenge, no bigger challenge than the importance of dealing with the integrity crisis of our state government. And I think that has to be job one. I think all of us have a role to play. Dr. Martin Luther King said a long time ago that everybody can be great because everyone can serve. And we really need to call upon the people of Illinois to serve. Everyone has to have a servant's heart. We're all in this together. It's our state. I think all of us have been embarrassed, maybe even humiliated by the fact that as we go perhaps to other places or people from other places come here, they're laughing at the Illinois government, that it isn't operating for the common good or the public interest. Well, we must change that. And as a result today, I'm naming a reform commission headed by Patrick Fitzgerald, I'm sorry. I'm partial to the name, Patrick, and he's a good man. If he was available, we might look him up. I think he has another job right now. But another Patrick who served under Patrick Fitzgerald, and I've known Pat Collins for a long time. Pat Collins was a prosecutor in the Office of the United States Attorney here. He served for 12 years. He did an exemplary job. He's committed to the public interest at all times. He's a very competent man and a hard-working man and a tireless man. And I talked to Pat last week about putting together a reform commission made up of good men and women across Illinois that would work with him as chairman to propose reforms for our state government, whether it be legislative reforms, administrative reforms, whatever the case might be. We really need to take a step back in Illinois and have a thorough, comprehensive look at the way politics and government are operated in Illinois. We need to change many practices, and we need to, I think, have a blueprint to do that. And I think having a reform commission really in the best traditions of the City Club. The City Club long ago was involved in the Burnham Plan and many other good plans that have been proposed to straighten out things that need to be straightened out, to mend flaws that have been discovered. That's what we have today. We can't kid ourselves in Illinois that we can have government as usual or politics as usual or business as usual. We really need to focus like a laser on the fundamental need to reform the way our government operates so that it always puts the public first, and those who would put themselves first need to be put aside. Many people in Illinois feel today that the government is corrupt, that the taxpayers pay a corruption tax, and that isn't right. We have to abolish the corruption tax once and for all. And I have full confidence in Patrick Collins, who is, I think has shown both in his public and private life that he knows how to work for the common good. And we really need to emphasize that in Illinois. Whatever your political party or whatever your ideology, now is a time for us to come together as fellow citizens in the best traditions of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said, when the people know the facts, they'll do the right thing. And that's what we have to do in Illinois. We have to have, I think, a thoroughgoing look at state government. Where things are not operating for the public, we need to change them and make them better and reform them. And so I think that, more than anything, is important for our state right now. To deal with this integrity crisis, I think we need to take it on head on, especially in the next few months. We need to summon the energy and the ideas of everybody in Illinois, in this room and in all the other places in Illinois where people gather, young and old. I believe that the highest office in a democracy is the office of citizen. That's what democracy is all about. It's the greatest gift that God has ever given us. We were the first democracy on this planet. There were men and women at Concord and Lexington who took their lives, risked their lives to tell King George that it wasn't the right way to go, his system of government. We needed one that listened to the people. And that's what I believe in and always have believed in, that the only way to cure the ills that we find in a democracy is to rely on the people, rely on democracy itself. And that's why I think in this time, which is certainly a crisis in our state, that we do need to band together as citizens, as taxpayers, as people who believe in doing the right thing all the time, and we can make the will of the people the law of the land. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, there is a fellow by the name of Patrick Collins here. I don't think Patrick Fitzgerald joined us, but Pat, you want to stand up and just, we can acknowledge your presence here? You know, Pat is going to head up this commission. It's called the Reform Commission, and its website is reformillinoisnow.org. Okay, Paul, take it from there.
We have some questions. If you could, Teresa, raise your hand, just raise your hand, and we'll go through these very fast. Remember, printing always gives you a little benefit, but it's a reform benefit. Here we go. The Paul Green guys understand all this. Here we go. Christy Hansen. Pat, are you traveling to Washington today?
No, I went to school in Washington for 4 years at Georgetown University, but I am not going to Washington today. I will go to the presidential inauguration, I hope, in a couple of weeks, and I think that is a cause for great joy in Illinois and our country. A new president committed to reform at the federal level, and I think all of us can certainly congratulate Barack Obama on a campaign well done, and I'm sure his administration will be the same way.
Following the line of these in-depth questions, Pat, if and when you become governor, will you live in the governor's residence in Springfield?
The answer is yes. I live in an apartment across the street at Lincoln Towers right now, and I understand the cooking is pretty good across the street at the governor's mansion. And I do think it is important for the governor to reside in a house that the people of Illinois have provided for the governor. I do not want to, however, be presumptuous. If that fact did occur, I think the governor should live in the mansion wherever possible, whenever possible.
Okay. Now let's get a little deeper into, by the way, I don't think you have to do any remodeling. Here we go. From Paul Galasini. What is Governor, well, let me just read this as it is. What is Governor's next level appeal if impeached by the Senate? Who was the governor during the appeals process?
Well, in Illinois, under our Constitution, impeachment takes place in the House. House of Representatives by majority vote of the members. That would be 60 votes out of 118. If the House members vote for impeachment, it's referred to the Illinois Senate, which consists of 59 members. The Constitution requires the Chief Justice of the Illinois Supreme Court, Thomas Fitzgerald, to come over to the Senate to preside over the Senate. Each senator is sworn in on oath to do justice. And essentially, the senators act as judges. That's true at the federal level and at the state level. It would take 2/3 of the Senate of Illinois, be at least 40 members, to vote for conviction upon impeachment. And that's the process. I think it's very important to be done in a fair, open way, and that's what the people want.
Okay, just to follow up, but during that whole process, Governor Blagojevich is still the governor.
Yeah. Well, as long as the governor has not been convicted upon impeachment, he remains as governor. I think I said in other forums that I think Governor Blagojevich would do himself a favor and the people of Illinois to voluntarily resign. I would say the activities last week indicate that he's not headed in that direction.
Along those lines, what is your position on the U.S. Senate appointment process?
Well, I think that we have a job to do in Illinois. I think the best way to deal with this issue is to ask the legislature to pass a law establishing a special election for replacing Barack Obama in his last 2 years in the Senate. I think that law should really be the law not only for this time but for the future, that there would always be a special election if a senator had to leave for whatever reason. Now, I don't think that Illinois should be denied 2 seats in the United States Senate during the pendency of an election. It takes a while to do that. In fact, I think right now, if there was going to be a special election in Illinois, it would probably have to be a primary on April 7th, and then a general election most likely on June 2nd. That would be the first Tuesday of June. That would be about the soonest you could do it. If the legislature passed that law, it would have to be signed by the governor. And I do understand there is some hesitancy on the part of members of the House and Senate sending any legislation now to Governor Blagojevich. And so if he was not the governor and there was a new governor, I would urge, I think, the legislature to pass a special election bill that would go to the governor's desk to be signed. There could be then a campaign for replacement in both a primary and a general election. I do think in that time of election, pendency of the election, the governor should have the authority to name a temporary replacement, and I think that's the best way to resolve this knotty problem.
Haven't heard that one before. Okay. From Joy Saxon, City Club Board Member. Because of the Adam Clayton Powell precedent, won't it be impossible to avoid seating Roland Burris?
Well, I haven't read that case in a while. I did go to law school, and the Powell case was a constitutional law case. It's a leading case. It involved the House of Representatives and an elected member to the House of Representatives. I just don't know enough about the constitutional history of the Senate's right to judge returns. As you know, historically, the Senate of the United States, for quite a while in our country's history, the senators were elected by state legislators. It wasn't until the turn of the last century that direct election of U.S. senators became part of our federal Constitution. So the history of the Senate and how it judges the qualifications of its members may not be identical to the House, and that's where Adam Clayton Powell sought to be seated. So I do feel, I said last week, I thought it was very wrong for the governor to appoint anyone to the U.S. Senate or anyone to anything. I don't think he should act on his appointment power in any way at this time. I think that's inappropriate under the legal circumstances. Nonetheless, he did, as we know. I think it was a mistake for Roland Burris, who was a very good friend of mine. I've known him 36 years. He's a good man. But I don't think it was a good thing that he accepted that appointment and stood next to Governor Blagojevich under these circumstances. So hopefully, as time goes on here in the next few days and weeks, a fair resolution will come about. But I think it's important for all of us in this room and all of us who believe in good government to make it crystal clear to the governor that we will not in any way tolerate the kind of behavior that we have seen. And I think the governor needs to hear that. I've said that personally to him as well as publicly. And the people of Illinois deserve better. In my opinion, Governor Blagojevich disgraced himself. He disgraced our state. And I think the appropriate thing to do is leave. But if he won't, the people will act.
Changing the subject a little bit, from Rufus Williams. Rufus, of Chicago Board of Education. Given the current state of the economy and of the politics in Springfield, what are your thoughts on increasing the state's investment in education? Shocking question coming from you.
Well, I think it's a core question, a core priority of state government. It's important for our state to realize that the only way we're going to prosper in the 21st century is to have smart people at every level. Jobs follow brain power. That's something I've believed in all along. I believe in laptop computers for elementary school children in the age of information and computers. And I think we need to reform our school finance system in Illinois. It's going to take, I think, a Herculean effort. I do believe that probably the best way to resolve it is at the ballot box. A number of states, including in the Midwest, have had referendums where the voters decide how to reorganize their school funding system. And I hope we can get to that point very soon in Illinois.
Along education lines again, Paul Frank, Federation of Independent Colleges. Higher education has suffered under Blagojevich, especially funding for the need-based student aid MAP program. Where does higher education rank on your priorities?
Well, I think one of the keys for Illinois is to keep the young men and women who are educated at our excellent universities in Illinois, both public and private. We have some of the best schools in the world right here, tremendous research as well as education and teaching going on there. And it's very important in our state to not let us have a brain drain where we, the taxpayers, help educate very smart people and then they leave for another place. So I think we have to work with our universities. Investing in higher education is a high priority in my book. I think it's very important that our universities help lead us in this direction of a green economy, a sustainable economy. And as Lieutenant Governor, I've been to just about every university in Illinois, public university, and many private ones as well. And I think it's important that we see right on the university campus the opportunities for energy efficiency and renewable energy and water conservation. Those are jobs of the future. They're solid jobs that don't get exported to another country. I think that many, many curriculums of universities are going to be headed in that direction because that's the best way for America to do well in the future for our children and grandchildren and their grandchildren. So I think there's a high important calling not only for four-year universities, but as I said earlier, community colleges really are very, very important to our Illinois education system. In particular for service members returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, work directly with literally thousands of young men and women who have volunteered to serve our country, worn the uniform of our country in very dangerous places, at the gates of hell in Iraq, and now in Afghanistan. We have 3,000 Illinois National Guard members right now serving in Afghanistan, the biggest deployment of National Guard in Illinois since World War II. And many of these young men and women, when they return, are going to be looking for education pursuant to their GI Bill of Rights, which has been enhanced. Our community colleges have to rise to the occasion, as well as our four-year universities. My dad happened to be a recipient of the GI Bill of Rights after World War II. It was the greatest expansion of the middle class in American history, where we decided in America that these veterans returning home We owed them a permanent debt of gratitude, and one of the very best ways to sort of pay that debt was through education and good jobs beyond. And so I really feel that's a challenge for all of us, not only our universities, but our employers in Illinois. There was one young man, I'll never forget, I was at his funeral, Daniel Zumzubo, a United States Marine and a member of the United States Army, who came back from Iraq as a Marine, spent about a year in Chicago looking for a job on the southwest side, couldn't find it, he joined the Army, was sent to Afghanistan. He was killed in an assassination attempt on Vice President Cheney in Afghanistan. And his mother at the funeral just lamented that our state, our society did not really have a job for her son when he left the Marine Corps. And so I think that's a lesson for all of us, that in these hard economic times, we've got to be very, very focused on those heroic men and women among us, sometimes young, sometimes maybe not so young, but when they serve, when they come back, we owe them a debt, and we really have to work hard as a society to pay that debt off.
I know the media is champing at the bit, and yes, I will be available afterwards. Don't worry about it. I'll be right over there in the corner. So we have 3 real quick questions left. This is from our own Kathy Posner. I will rephrase it slightly. Can someone volunteer to be on the reform committee that you just set up?
Well, I think we want to get everyone's ideas and suggestions. That's one of the reasons we have a website, reformillinoisnow.org, to encourage people to submit their ideas and suggestions. I think the commission itself will be a dozen or a little bit more than that. It's under the direction of Pat Collins. I think a good idea may be to have some public hearings where people can participate. We need to use the tools of electronic democracy, the internet and so on, to really get from the people of Illinois, the people who pay the taxes, who pay the salaries of all public officials, their ideas for reform. And then that, to me, upon that report that Pat Collins will draft, we need to use that as a blueprint for straightening out things that are going wrong in Illinois. And I think we can do it. It's important that all of us understand that it's not sort of the government's job to reform itself. The people of Illinois are way ahead of the government when it comes to demanding reform, and I think we've got to get the job done.
This would be good practice for you if and when a certain time comes. From Joyce Washington, healthcare funding has continued to be shortchanged. Where is healthcare on your list of priorities? By the way, if you become governor, you should have a very long list.
Well, Joyce is a good friend. I think her passion for health care is something that is shared by just about everybody in our state, that it's a fundamental right. Cardinal Bernardine came from our city just before he died in 1996. He wrote a pastoral letter lamenting that our country had not really made health care a fundamental right for everyone. And Cardinal Bernardine, in really that letter, I think in a few paragraphs, kind of left to us the job to do. And my doctor happens to be Quentin Young, who's 85 years young. He's going to turn 85 coming up here. And he and I did walk across Illinois from Rock Island and the Mississippi River, the Centennial Bridge, all the way across our state to Chicago and Lake Michigan. We were met by Studs Terkel that last day. What a historic day. And I think it's important that knowing our journey, our walking journey across Illinois, the importance of health care for our economy and for everyone. And we have to understand that this is a challenge of our time. I think it is something that states have to work with the federal government on. Medicaid funding is vital in Illinois. It almost approaches the amount of money we spend on education. And I think we do need some reforms in the way health care is delivered, fundamental reforms. And states in Illinois, such as Illinois and many others, have to, I think, work with Washington this year on really straightening out the healthcare system in our country. I do think President Obama is extremely sensitive on this issue. From the conversations I've had with his helpers, I think there's going to be help from Washington on our Medicaid situation, and I think that's vitally needed. So in this time of economic recession and hopefully recovery very soon, that no one goes without the health care they need. I think we owe that to our neighbor.
Okay. By the way, Neil, I can't answer your question because then all the other media guys would beat the living heck out of me, so you could come charging up here. I know a couple of them that want to do it anyway. So the last question from Myrna Mazer, an oldie but goodie for you, Pat. Will you support the restitution of proportional representation to give people more of a voice to vote on their government?
Well, I do support referendum, and if Erna wants to go out and get the signatures to put it on the ballot, that's what I did with a lot of other people in 1980, and the people spoke then by a wide margin that they wanted the current system that's been in place now for 28 years. But I do believe it's healthy in Illinois to have provisions in our Constitution that allow people to petition for binding referendums, at least on certain subjects, whether it's what Erna just mentioned, how the legislature is organized, which is a very central question to our democracy. But I also think we should really consider in Illinois having an ethics initiative. If we want to change the way Illinois goes when it comes to honesty in government and making sure that that's always the credo and practice of our government, then I think we need to make sure that the people can always lean on the government all the time. And having an initiative process that allows the voters to enact ethics reforms directly by petition and referendum, I think would be a healthy improvement. It would always be there in case something does threaten to break down. So I'm not sure that will please Erna, but I think that is something that I'm going to work for in the coming year.
How about a big round of applause?